All right, welcome back in. It's Gold Jacket Thursday, and I was looking forward to this more than many. From Denmark to Canton, so many monster milestones along his journey, all decade teams of the 80s and 90s. 25 seasons, unbelievable, and he retired as the all-time leading scorer in NFL history, and a 38-yarder in overtime that broke my Viking heart when he punched the Falcons into their first Super Bowl, enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2017. He's back in football heaven this weekend. He's the Great Dane. He's Morten Andersen. Good to have you.
It is my pleasure. It was a lot of fun up there on January 17th, 1999. So I know it broke your heart, but it made me $300,000 richer, actually, because my agent called me after the game and he said, "Great game." I said, no kidding. We're going to the Super Bowl. He goes, "You forgot." I said, "What?" He said, "When I negotiated your contract, the kicker at the end was, no pun intended, the kicker at the end was, if you make a field goal to win the NFC Championship and or the Super Bowl, you get $300K. So that was a good ride home, my man.
Wait a minute. That was a little like throw-in clause in the contract?
Correct.
Incentive?
Yeah, like, hey, we'll take your number, however, comma, I need this. And so he didn't even tell me about this clause until after the game. I said, "Thank God you didn't tell me before the game."
I don't know, man. You were clutch. And I will say this. I never wanted Denny Green to ice you in that spot. Because you know what I figured, Mort? I figured that you would be expecting to be iced, and we'd kind of play with your mind a little bit and not ice you. But he did it anyway.
Well, you know what I figured? You can't ice.
You can't ice. Yeah, that's right. I think there was a song that we can add to that as well. All right, quick.
I mean, I am a Viking, you know.
You are. You came to the States as an exchange student, though, and I remember you said the story in your enshrinement speech, which, by the way, was one of the all-time greats, that your first kick, I believe, your first kick ever of a football was already under pressure, so maybe it was meant to be. Tell me about your time at Ben Davis High School in Indianapolis.
It was so incredible. Those 10 months, without those 10 months at Ben Davis, I'm not sitting here in Canton, Ohio with a gold jacket. I can tell you that. That's where my American dream started. And I just went back a couple of weeks ago for a Heart of the Hall of Famer program that the Pro Football Hall of Fame puts on, where you get to go back to your high school, talk to the students, and make an impact. And it was one of the most unique, invigorating, inspiring experiences in my life to be able to, if you will, pass it forward, kick it down the street a little bit, and talk to these kids who are at a critical, life is all about defining moments. And I know for a fact when you're a senior in high school, there are some defining moments coming at you, and you've got to get on the train. There's no point in standing on the at the station and let that train leave. So my message to those kids at Ben Davis, where it all started for me, was to be curious. Be a curious student, be inquisitive, and be thirsty for knowledge. Be courageous in that journey of seeking knowledge and taking risks and failing forward. But the most in my life anyway, the lessons I feel like that I learned was, when your hands are above your head, you're not really improving as much as when your back's against the wall. So my whole mantra, if you will, is to embrace the suck, embrace the world of suck, which, being a kicker, believe me, plenty of distasteful moments, very perceived high-pressure situations where you have to perform in a very short period of time. And I try to convey that to my Ben Davis, colleagues, students that are at a different stage of their life than me, obviously, having lived a long life already and being 64. How do you connect with people that are 17, kids that are 17, 18 years old and still trying to figure it out? And I think my message really for anybody out there wanting to listen, and I know you have a lot of people listening, it is to be, courageous and inquisitive and really want to go take the journey and not be scared of making tough decisions. And you know what? If you fail, okay, good. It means you're living, and it means you're improving. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. It's good stuff right there. Morten, take us inside the moment where you really said to yourself, I'm going to pursue kicking and I'm going to go all in with being one of the best kickers of all time. When was that moment and why did that moment happen, you believe?
That never really occurred to me. But what I was more interested in was a process and the quality of the process. I know that sounds kind of corny maybe, but excuse me. I was never really like in the NFL and Division I college. I mean, it's result oriented. I know that. So that was a given, but I was much more interested in, how can I become, how can I own my workbench? And my workbench for kicking was that little area that, 1.15 seconds from snap to kick. How can I become elite at defining that, at defining it, at training it, and at owning it? And so for a kicker, the moment, so I'm taking you inside my mind now. Your question's good, but it demands a detailed answer, and that's what I'm going to try to give you. I'll try to cliff note it, but process oriented. The moment of truth for a kicker is when? It is when the plant foot hits the ground. Why? Because now it's non-negotiable. I'm either in the right spot or the wrong spot. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
So the moment of truth is important to understand in everything we do in life, but for a kicker, infinitely important. So that's what I teach my guys. We have to figure out, we have to define the workbench, okay, the approach, the plant, the finish, and all those things down the line, down the target line, and so forth. Vertical ball flight, aim for the middle. Why do we aim for the middle? Because it never changes. Hello. People say, "Oh, it's windy. Where should I aim?" Aim for the middle. Aim for the middle. It never changes. And it might move 4 or 5, but I got 18.6. I got 18 feet 6 inches. So to me, the realization that I was elite came much later. It wasn't important to me. What was important to me was the quality of the experience when I was in it. And as I went and got skins on the wall, I realized, this is turning into a unique experience. I'm one of the best in the world at what I'm doing. But it never really occurred to me that was not my goal. My goal was to have an elite experience and make the process so fun that it was undeniable and it was unavoidable.
He's the 5-time first-team All-Pro kicker. He's Morten Andersen with us on a Gold Jacket Thursday, 7-time Pro Bowler, retired as the all-time leading scorer in NFL history. This may be a quicker story that you'll have to tell in the time we have, because I wanted you to tell my co-host, because I've heard it before. This was not a done deal. You were, as they say, on the beach. You may not have had a chance, but this was a milestone that you really wanted, though. You wanted to be able to be the all-time leading scorer when you retired. Were you?
That is correct.
And you were concerned at the time because you were essentially almost forced retired, I guess.
That is correct. You're spot on with that. And there are times when you have to put a carrot out there and say, "Hey, man, what is the purpose here?" Because for 20 months in a public park, people are looking at me like, "Hey, you had a good run, Morten. What are we doing here?" And I had to defer to little leaguers who needed the field. You talk about humbling. You go from playing for the Vikings in 2004 to practicing 4 times in a public park every week, but only if the field was available, and you could get somebody to unlock the gate. I mean, you're talking from 1 month to the next. I played 23 years in the league, and now I'm here, and the phone's not ringing. I mean, that was. You talk about a gut check, you talk about back against the wall. And I'm 70, and to your point, I'm 77 points away from being the all-time leading scorer in the history of the game. You have to go and get that. You have to. Yeah. And by all means necessary. And people called me absolutely nuts. You're certifiably crazy, and I probably was. There was a very thin line between excellence and insanity. So I mean, and I was. I mean, when I look back on those 20 months, I said there were times when I was a selfish bastard. I'm a narcissist, but without having been that, I wouldn't have gotten to where I needed to go. And kudos to the wife and the kids for allowing me to do that.
Hey,
Do
listen,
that crazy drive, crazy 20 months.
Incredibly inspiring. You were 80% for 25 years. Can you tell me in 10 seconds? I told my co-host friend here about the era of barefoot kickers, and he looked at me like I was crazy. You ever try it? I mean, not on a beach. You were in the era of some barefoot kickers.
First of all, I'm an opportunist, okay, and I believe in free enterprise. So being barefoot, you can't get a shoe contract. Let's leave it at that.
That's a great answer. That's it. That's all. That's awesome. Morten Andersen is going to be at the Pro Football Hall of Fame this weekend, and on Saturday you have a chance to go up there. He's going to bring his gold jacket. He'll be wearing it, and he will be the Hall of Famer at the Hall. 10:45 to 11:15. He'll greet you in the lobby. And obviously in the theater, presenting to the museum guests. I will say that I re-listened to your speech, and what you give will grow and what you keep will perish, will stay with me forever. Inspiring stuff, Morten. I'm so glad you're back. Be well, and I would love to have you back on because your stories are tremendous.
Anytime. It was a great visit. Thank you.